Um, there are many questions. It was not the same presentation at all. It was complementary. So I think it's a very good match. Friendly competitor is the right word. So one thing that I wonder about is this afternoon in the first session and also now we hear a lot about standardization, about the need for standardization. And the interesting thing about it is it doesn't come from the public sector, it comes from the private sector. Because in the public space, in the media, very often there is a discussion about free market or market regulation. And I think it's interesting to hear that you need some regulation in the form of standards to make sure that it works, both in the apparel industry, in the garments industry, and in the building industry. So I see some parallel there. Would you see that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Standardization will,
Yes, it's working.
Yeah, standardization will help us make the right investment decisions and will tell us which targets to go for. And nowadays, we are not experts, and we hear all these pitches from a lot of so-called green suppliers and consultants and companies, but when what they pitch to us, it all sounds great, but do they really work? We don't know. But if there are standards that will help us quantify things and measure things, then it will help us a lot.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to ask on stage my colleague Noriko Honda Chen, and I have a question for my co-moderator. You work in the financial industry, and we just heard that they would need green funds, special green funds in order to finance these WWF schemes and so on. And since you work in the financial industry, you might be able to tell us how it is possible that to arrange for that, because you have the money in your pocket, don't you?
Well, we specialize in looking for the service operators, so the companies that are actually providing the equipment and the service for the manufacturers. And we encourage governments to provide regulation that actually helps basically this current mismatch between kind of long-term paybacks with short-term goals right now for some of the manufacturers in terms of their paybacks.
So it's the government that has to pay for it.
I think the government really does need to subsidize
loans.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That's
Unfortunately.
interesting.
And actually, yeah, I would be interested in hearing from both Mr. Lee and Mr. Szeto if they received any government incentives, for the current projects that you had done.
Yes.
I believe for the WWF program, there's a little bit of a small funding from the government. Yeah.
Yeah, likewise, I think there was a subsidization for the consultants for this project, but we as a company also got some green financing from HSBC, which is one of the very few local banks that provide it. So we're fortunate.
So, but it was something that you had to go and look out for. It wasn't a kind of stakeholder process where the government, called in manufacturers and said, this is, something that we're looking for in terms of energy efficiency.
Correct. But even if we have to call in and we can get it, that's okay. We don't mind doing that. But
right.
We were looking around at different banks, and HSBC was the only one that provided it. So, if we're lucky, we have a good relationship with HSBC. But we can imagine if another manufacturer who uses Citibank, for example, and they don't have it, then they're stuck.
That's interesting. Good.
I hope we don't have any city.
I hope HSBC is on the list here. Maybe we can. There's some people secluded in the audience. Maybe you want to call on them.
Some of them are here. Some aren't.
Okay,
perhaps I can see who's here. Is Dr. Huang here? Or Thomas Wong from CLP? Okay, they may not be here. I think.
Over there.
Oh, he is here. Okay, well, maybe we could ask Mr. Wong, what kind of financial incentives does CLP have, or what do they require in order to generate energy efficiently rather than just provide electricity?
Could you maybe for the international audience introduce CLP in 30 seconds?
Yes, just talking about the financial support. And about the energy efficiency fund, actually.
Could you please tell us who CLP is so everybody knows?
CLP Power is one of the utility companies in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Many people come from abroad and don't know that.
Yes,
so,
we serve more than 70% of Hong Kong populations. And talking about the financial support, we have energy efficiency fundings. Every year we have 25 million that amount to support our customers in Hong Kong to do some energy efficiency projects. So if you are our customers, you can try to apply the interest-free loan for that kind of energy efficiency projects.
Did you know that? Okay. You have already achieved that. You are wiser when you go out than when you came in.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
And I think Mr. Lamandry is here. Is that right? Yes. Perhaps we can find out from him, just in terms of, it seems as if getting the stakeholders together is a bit of a daunting process. You know, can you run through how you get the government to work with the community, with the customers, and also the building owners, and how you facilitate that process?
Sure. One of the biggest challenges that you face, and we have faced in the past, is there's lots of stakeholders and not everyone can agree. And so the process that we've used is we've tried to adopt a standard that's already been used or already been adopted somewhere else. And looking at that standard, making small modifications, not large ones, bringing stakeholders together in small committee meetings, allowing them to voice their concerns ahead of time, and trying to take as much of that in negotiation ahead of time before we propose particular changes to any particular pieces of legislation, then allowing them to go through the legislative process and hopefully having minimal changes during the legislative process. So having stakeholders, and when we say stakeholders for us, it's labor, management, or development, as well as government stakeholders and any industry groups and citizens.
If I may play the devil's advocate, as I had promised in the beginning.
Yes, it's a very difficult process and takes a while, and you have to have a strong hand. You're absolutely right.
No, I didn't want to say that.
Oh, okay.
But that's true too. From my perspective, I'm not here to tell the truth, but to discuss with you. The important thing, the interesting thing about the example of New York you're referring to, is that this consultation process led to a lower standard than the administration had in mind first. You want to regulate more than was regulated based on that consulting process. Isn't there a big danger, or how do you avoid the danger that at the end of the day you will have a very low minimal standard that everybody can agree on, but will not have a big impact if I talk about reducing the carbon footprint maybe of New York by 50% or something like that by 2050? What are your techniques to avoid this downgrading step by step in a negotiation process?
Well, certainly you have to remember that you're starting from the standard of at a certain level. And, you know, one of the most important things is to move the agenda forward. You have to stay strong, and you do have to measure where you start from and where you end up. And in certain cases, we've been able to achieve 90% of what we wanted. So you do have to keep everyone's feet to the fire. And there are going to be trade-offs. I said it earlier today, if you want to create a higher green baseline, we're already above what the minimum standards are for buildings. And so if you want to go to a higher standard, try not to shoot too high to begin with, or else you won't get anywhere and you won't even get off the starting block. So you have to consider the economic issues, just like these manufacturers talk about. We want to do something, but we don't want to invest money that's going to have a 7 or 10 year payback. So if that's a non-starter, what are our alternatives, and how else can we to feed the fire? And so you can't reach too high or else you get nowhere.
So you mean be ambitious but go step by step. Would that be a little bit the bottom line?
Yeah, I think so.
What is your experience from the city of Toronto with the programs you have been running, Mark?
I would agree very much with a colleague from New York City. It's you've got your long-term goal. This is where we want to be in the 20 years or 30 years, but obviously you're not going to get there right away, and you have to work your way in an incremental way so that to keep people interested and engaged, all the various stakeholders. And one of the things I didn't talk a bit about and under the Tower Renewal Initiative is we have set it up as a sort of a 4-step process with the intention of trying to do the easy things first, get people or the building owners and the tenants engaged, and then you move to the next level, and then the next level, and then the really hard stuff is in the 4th step, obviously.
So it's a lot about trust, developing trust step by step. That's mainly the goal. Okay. Can I hand over to you, Noriko, maybe for questions from the audience?
Yes. Are there any questions from the audience? I think there's one over there.
I had a question for Mr. Bekkering. You just touched on the idea of a city bond right at the end of your presentation. And I wondered if you can go into any more detail on that, because to my understanding, bonds are a long-term investment, but you get a given return. Where is the return coming from? Because presumably your tenants, your owners, are going to get the savings from the energy use, the energy reductions.
Well, I mean, it's not in place yet, obviously. It's something that's still being explored and investigated. And there are some regulatory or legislative issues that we have to sort out with the province of Ontario, the state government, before we can actually move forward. But broadly speaking, the intent is to try and establish the payback so that the financial savings that the property owner garners will pay the loan and whatever interest the investors make into the bonds. So basically, the first 10, 15 years, you're still paying the equivalent of what you did, but after that 15 years, then you're free, and the savings start to return back to the property owner and the tenants if they pay the utility bills.
So it's a kind of added addition to the mortgage, is it? Something like that?
Yes, well, it is in addition to the mortgage, but the intent is trying to establish it as it's more of a fee that the property owner will be paying to the city corporation that we have to establish. And apologize. One of the benefits of my job is I get to touch on a variety of different issues, and therefore, I know a little bit about everything, but not a lot about all the things that we're doing. And I'd have to get back to you to give you a lot more of the real detail of how the project manager is setting this up.
Is there a website where we could study that?
Not the details that she's getting at, no.
Okay, so here's the carrier of the secrets, and turn to him after the session, please.